Happiness by J.C. Ryle. An atheist was once addressing a crowd of people in the open air. He was trying to persuade them that there was no God and no devil, no heaven and no hell, no resurrection, no judgment, and no life to come. He advised them to throw away their Bibles and not to pay attention to what preachers said. He recommended them to think as he did and to be like him. He talked boldly. The crowd listened eagerly. It was the blind leading the blind. Both were falling into the pit. In the middle of his speech, a poor old woman suddenly pushed her way through the crowd to the place where he was standing. She stood before him. She looked him right in the face. "Sir," she said in a loud voice, "are you happy?" The atheist looked scornfully at her and gave her no answer. "Sir," she said again, "I ask you to answer my question. Are you happy? You want us to throw away our Bibles. You tell us not to believe what preachers say about Christ. You advise us to think as you do and to be like you. Now, before we take your advice, we have a right to know what good we will gain by it. Do your fancy new ideas give you a lot of comfort? Do you yourself really feel happy?" The atheist stopped and attempted to answer the old woman's question. He stammered and shuffled and fidgeted and endeavored to explain his meaning. He tried hard to return to his subject. He said that he had not come to preach about happiness, but it was of no use. The old woman stuck to her point. "Do your fancy new ideas give you a lot of comfort? Do you yourself really feel happy?" She insisted on her question being answered, and the crowd took her side. Finally, the atheist was obliged to leave and sneak off in the confusion. His conscience would not let him stay. He dared not say that he was happy. The old woman showed great wisdom in asking the question that she did. The argument she used may seem very simple, but in reality it is one of the most powerful that can be employed. It is a weapon that has more effect on some minds than the most elaborate reasoning by some of our great apologists. Whenever a man begins to speak against and despise that old-time Bible Christianity, then simply drive home at his conscience the old woman's questions. Ask him whether his new views make him feel at peace within himself. Ask him whether he can say with honesty and sincerity that he is truly happy. The great test of a man's faith and religion is, does it make him happy? Let me now invite every one of you to consider the subject of happiness. Let me warn you not to forget that the salvation of your soul is closely tied together with the subject. The heart cannot be right in the sight of God, which knows nothing of happiness. That man or woman cannot be in the right state of soul who feels no peace within. Let me point out some things which are absolutely essential to true happiness. Happiness is what all mankind wants to obtain. The desire of it is deeply planted in the human heart. All men naturally dislike pain, sorrow, and discomfort. How vague and indistinct and undefined the ideas of most men are on this subject. They think some are happy who in reality are miserable. They think some are gloomy and sad who in reality are truly happy. They dream of a happiness which in reality would never satisfy their natural desires. Let me try to throw a little light on the subject. True happiness is not freedom from sorrow and discomfort. Let that never be forgotten. If it were true, then there would be no such thing as happiness in this world. Such happiness is for angels who have never fallen and not for man. The happiness I am talking about is that kind that a poor, dying, sinful creature may hope to attain. Our whole nature is defiled by sin. Evil abounds in the world. Sickness and death and change are daily doing their sad work everywhere. In such a state of things, the highest happiness man can attain to on earth must necessarily be a mixed thing. True happiness does not consist in laughter and smiles. The face is very often a poor indicator of the inward man. There are thousands who laugh loudly and are merry in the company of others, but are wretched and miserable in private. There are hundreds who are solemn and serious in their demeanor, but whose hearts are full of solid peace. A poet once wrote that our smiles are not worth very much. He said, "A man may smile and be a villain." Don't tell me of smiling and laughing faces. I want to hear of something more than that when I ask whether a man is happy. A truly happy man will no doubt often show his happiness in his face. But a man may have a very cheerful face and yet not be happy at all. Look at the most beautiful woman at the party who is smiling, and you might suppose she never knew what it was to be unhappy. See her the next day at her own home, and you will most likely find her angry at herself and everyone else besides. No, worldly fun is not real happiness. There is a certain pleasure about it I don't deny. I freely concede that there is an animal excitement about it and a temporary elevation of the spirits. But don't call it by the sacred name of happiness. The most beautiful cut flowers stuck in the ground do not make a garden. When ordinary glass is called a diamond, then and not till then can people who laugh and smile be called happy. To be truly happy, the highest needs of man's nature must be met and satisfied. The requirements of his remarkably designed physical nature must all be met. Till then, he will never be truly happy. And what are man's principal needs? Does he only have a body? No, he has something more. He has a soul. Does he only have the 5 senses? Can he do nothing but hear and see and smell and taste and feel? No, he has an intelligent mind and a conscience. Does he have any consciousness of any world but that in which he lives and moves? He has. There is still a small voice within him which often makes itself heard, saying that this is not all there is to life. There is the world unseen. There is life beyond the grave. Yes, it is true. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. All men know it. All men feel it, if they would only speak the truth. The soul has needs. There are needs of the conscience. There can be no true happiness until these needs are satisfied. To be truly happy, a man must have sources of happiness which are not dependent on anything in this world. There is nothing on earth which is not stamped with the mark of instability and uncertainty. All the good things that money can buy are but for a moment. They either leave us or we are obliged to leave them. All the sweetest relationships in life are liable to come to an end. Death may come any day and cut them off. The man whose happiness depends entirely on things here below is like him who builds his house on sand. Don't tell me of your happiness if it daily depends on the uncertainties of the earth. Your home may be rich in comforts. Your wife and children may be all that you could desire. Your income may be sufficient to meet all of your needs. But oh, remember this. If you have nothing more than this to look to, then you are standing on the edge of a cliff. Your joy may be deep and earnest, but I fear it will be short-lived. It is not true happiness.